That's well, since he's on the other medicine, he's doing better. Remember our church? Remember me? In the past 2 weeks, I've worked 113 and a half hours. This past Wednesday, it was 12:30 or 10:30 at night when I finally stopped working. And sometimes I just stopped working, not because I was done, but because I was just too tired to go on. So it'll be there anyway. But so remember all that. Any other prayer requests? Maybe Stephanie Bell. Okay.
Is the person that had the coronavirus, not
Mask is on.
okay. Not
Also,
yeah. Is she doing better?
Yeah, she's home. She's doing it. We've known a few folks I've known 3 people who had coronavirus. One of them is Rita Arthur. Remember her? She's not doing too well from what she's been having seizures, what Carol's been saying. Kenny Baldwin, he's recovered, but it hit him pretty hard. He was a healthy fellow, but it hit him pretty hard. And then Sue Ramsey, it hit her really hard. She's on a ventilator for a long time. So just remember, all those were sick.
Does she know where she contracted that from? Because she stays very in the hospital.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing is there's people coming in and they actually think, I heard something yesterday that the version of the coronavirus going around this country is a little bit different than what was over in Asia. And they think it may be fully aerosolized, because if it's fully aerosolized, the masks aren't going to do anything.
No.
the one here or the one in Asia?
The one here, they believe is fully aerosolized, which is why we're getting hit harder than others. But I will say that a lot of people get it and they don't have any symptoms, so.
How do you know if you have the coronavirus? If
They
you don't have
test
the
you,
symptoms?
that's how you know. Anyway. All right, so let's remember all those things. David, you open us in prayer?
Thank you once again, Lord God, and thank you, Father, for the opportunity, Father, that you've given us to take an action on that, Father. Father, we do thank you for the blessings that you put upon each and every one of us, Father. We do thank you for your love, your grace, and Father, your mercy. We thank you for the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Father. Father, and we thank you for our pastor, Father, and for each and every one who's able to make their way out today, Lord God, Father. Father, we ask that you bless the service, Father. Be it the songs, the testimonies, Lord God, Father. Be it the preaching, Lord, Father. Father, be it everything that's said and done today, Father. So, Father, we just want to glorify your holy name, Lord God. Father, we know that without you, Father, there is nothing, there could be nothing, and there will be nothing, Lord God, Father. Father, we love, we praise you, and ask all things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
All right, let's stand and sing. We're going to sing, I'll tell you what, let's sing Rescue the Perishing. You going to want me to run it, or you can?
I got the sound, I got the stuff, the music.
Okay. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, snatch them in pity from sin and the grave. Weep over the erring one, lift up the fallen, tell them of Jesus the mighty to save. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. They are sliding until he is waiting the penitent child to receive. Plead with them earnestly, plead with them gently, he will forgive if only they plead. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Down in the human heart, crushed by the tempter, feelings of misery that grace can restore. Touched by a loving heart, with thy kindness, cords that were broken will vibrate once more. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Rescue the perishing, duty demands it. Strength for the labor the Lord will provide. Back to the narrow way, patiently win them. Tell the poor wonder the Savior has died. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying. Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Amen. Be seated. And it's time for Sunday School Hour. Dave, come on up here. I can give you this microphone so that people can hear you. Well, or you wear the other one. It doesn't matter. There's two cordless mics. You wear either one.
Before you leave the area, can you turn the lights on?
Turn the lights on, sure. What's our verses? What's our text? Bible text today? Chapter 17 of Revelation. Oh.
Sorry about Wednesday night. Richard called me, and we were talking, and I sort of jumped the gun a little bit faster than I should have, I think. Timothy, it tells us to be instant and to be ready. And I should have been ready. I wasn't thinking about the call. I guess I was thinking more of the flesh.
You like to sleep, okay? No, those computer.
That would be my son. He turned off the projector.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Huh? But anyway, I felt the conviction of God a few times about not being here Wednesday night. Any chance that we've got a chance to open the doors of God and to be here, we should. There's going to be just time that our preacher's not going to be here, and he will call to let me know, and to more or less, I think, to step up a little bit and to give a class. And I wasn't prepared. I sort of got caught by surprise, but it's still no excuse. So I do want to apologize, because I know that he had a need, and I should help him with the need of opening the doors of the church. Today we're in Revelations 17, and we're going to do the whole chapter of Revelations. It's called Victory of the Lamb. This was really a tough chapter for me. It's really, it's a deep chapter, and due to time restraints, we're going to cover the surface of it. And I hate to say this, I guess I've said it too many times, but I'm sort of going to butcher another chapter, and I hate to do that. But I'm going to ask the preacher this morning to keep me in line, because I'm liable to say something or get some offense mixed up. And I need some correction from time to time. I'm going to start with a little bit of introduction. It's the introduction into the chapter, and I'm going to read the chapter introduction. I like these chapter introductions. They say a lot. We already know what they're saying and what's going on. But I like to read these chapter introductions. And it says the struggle for control on the earth is real. And there's a lot of people that don't believe that. We look at our nation today and look at what all's going on, and there's so many people that don't believe in God. There's so many people that's turned their back. It may be beyond the scope of our five physical senses and far beyond our material capacity, our mental capacity to comprehend, but there is a spiritual battle taking place in the all-seeing world between right and wrong, between good and evil, between God and Satan. The Apostle Paul touched on this subject when he said, "For we wrestle not against flesh and bone, but against principalities and against power, against the rulers of the darkness of the world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Darkness and wickedness rage against darkness and wickedness rage against light and goodness. There are times when the conflict is very open and we can observe the result of its play out before our eyes. At other times, it is more hidden and likely goes completely unnoticed by the unsaved as well as by the worldly beliefs. Satan is a master of deceit and manipulation. He holds great sway over the nations as the God of this world. He influences policies and crafts. He directs an innumerable army of powerful fallen angels who serve as his agents and who spread his strategies and influence throughout the globe. Another verse after this, it says, nevertheless, God is one who ultimately is in control, and his Son, Jesus Christ. I have some more that to read, but I'm going to close on that right there. As far as the beginning. I was sitting there thinking this morning, when I was reading back through this, and I was thinking about the beginning of sin. We're looking at the end of times. We're looking at the end of times upon this earth. We're looking towards the judgment. We're looking towards going home. We're looking towards being with God. We're looking towards what's coming, and we can see it. If you open your eyes, if you can't see what's coming, this world will never be the same due to this virus. I don't care what you say, it's never going back to a norm. There's no norm. It's just spiraling out of control. I heard something on TV the other night, and I was laying awake, and I sort of flipped through the channels, and I come across one of the talk shows, Fox News or one, and they were interviewing a guy. And this is something that I didn't know, and you probably don't know this. Maybe you do. If you watch Fox News, I'm sure that it's caught you. They've been tearing down statues in America, and that's no new thing. They're trying to take away our history. They're trying to change history, and they can't change it. History is history. But then there was an interview, a guy that was talking about the Christians being prosecuted as far as people were tearing down Christian statues now. They went beyond statues of the leaders, of Confederate leaders and stuff, and they went to Christianity. There was two places that they identified in two different states. One was in Florida, one was in Kentucky. They actually took the statue standing and cut off the head of Jesus. And I started thinking, I said, you know, it's starting. It's starting from the crowds. The crowds is rushing out of control. The crowds that's been given the right to do whatever they want to do. I think of the man where these crowds had broke into the gated area that he lived into, and he owned his house, and they were going to come into his house, and he was fearing for his life. He was standing before him with an AR-15 or AR-16. I mean M16, not AR. But he was standing before him. His wife was holding a pistol. They interviewed the man. He said, I was scared for my life. He said, I don't care whether they were black or white or what they were. I was scared for my life that they were going to kill me and kill my house and come in and take everything that I had. Now, this is a beautiful mansion. But the thing about it is they shouldn't have been there. And the government, the city government, the town government, the state government was going to prosecute this guy for rejecting him off his property for stoning him. And I don't know whatever became of that, but you got to think about where we're headed. And there's just so much more. There's so much more going on. So there'll never be a new norm. I seen on TV the other day, it flashed, and it was talking. It said, no lives matter. No lives matter until Black lives matter. We're God's people. All lives matter. Every life on this earth. Every living soul on this earth. Every person. Their lives matter. All lives matter. Now, this is America, and we're making bold statements like that through our networks. Think about it. No lives matter to the networks, except Black lives and until it. But anyway, we're looking at the end of times. And I thought about where to start. And it all started at the beginning in Genesis. Everything that we look at, everything, Genesis is the beginning. The next is Exodus, and God took his people out, and then he started to teach them right from wrong. He started teaching them the laws. You know what I'm saying? So it all started in Genesis. It started at the very beginning. But now we're standing at the end, and if you look, you can see through the valleys and the hills. You can see the end, and you can see what's coming. You can see it's all started. It started actually in Genesis, but it's come to this point, and this is the point that we're at. Chapter 17 was a little bit hard for me. I read this, and I listened to some preaching on it. I listened to some different things, and I think I've got a grasp in saying it, and I might need your help to say something out of order, and there's a lot of order in this. But we're not going to go back to Genesis, and we're not going to talk about what's got us here. We're going to try to speak of what is and what's coming and what we see and how we got here. Something else. 17 verse 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgments of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Revelation talks about 2 women in the Bible. This is the little one that we haven't talked about yet. We talked about one earlier, the woman that was clothed with the sun. She was the image of Israel. This is the image of the world. This is, and we brought it up last week when I mentioned that, and you said, David, Babylon got destroyed, but there's no city of Babylon, but these are the developments of Babylon.
Right.
Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
We're
so
talking, go ahead.
I was going to say basically, if somebody came and they blew up Hollywood, right? And there was no city of Hollywood anymore. But you could still say that there's Hollywood values. You could still say that Hollywood still have an influence. There's still all these actors and stuff. And they personify what Hollywood is, if that makes sense. So in other words, just because the physical city has been destroyed, the influence and the systems that it created still persist. Just like if the city of Hollywood, California was completely obliterated, it wouldn't change the Hollywood values and the Hollywood system that exists.
No, you're exactly right. One thing that I learned by listening this morning, and maybe I was just misunderstanding about the lecture that I was listening to this morning, but they were talking about Babylon, even though it was destroyed, there's still a remnant of people there. There's still a remnant on that site of old Babylon, after the destruction. So I don't know whether that has anything to do with it. It has nothing to do with the class tonight. But I didn't think that anything stood. I know that it was totally down, but evidently they've got a little town or a city or something that's in close and surrounds, that there's still a remnant of the Babylonians that was there in that time. So, but in any case. We talk about this woman, and it says that the whore that says on many waters. And when they refer to waters, we can talk about waters, we can talk about the seas, we can talk about the cities that was built by the seas. That was common to build cities by the seas. These cities by the seas, most of the great cities had a seaport. For sea travel inland, they didn't have these great cities because they never had the people coming and going. They never had the merchandise and the items. It all had to come from the sea. So we're not talking about the sea itself. We're not talking about the water to sea. When they mention the sea, we're talking about the sea of humanity, the sea of people, and that's humanity itself. Many waters. She said upon the waters of many nations. She said, and you look at our nation today, and you look how our nation is turned, and this takes a direction. This is a religious direction that we're talking about. You've got two directions from Babylon. It's the Babylonian religion direction. It's the Babylonian, it's the worldly government direction. And of course, she's going to talk with the government, and we'll go into that as we talk. So, verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth has committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with wine of her fornication. This is false religion and spiritual infidelity.
And look at that. I mean, when you're talking about fornication, that's probably the most intimate sin that you can commit. If you're fornicating with somebody, you're as close to them as you possibly can be.
Spiritual infidelity.
And right here, the governments of the earth are so wrapped up in this fake religion that, I mean, the Bible refers to it in almost as in a sexual way.
This is what this verse 17 is about. Fake religion, false prophets, and the leadership of fake religion, and what fake religion is doing. And we can look out on our street and we can see what this fake religion is. We can see it. We can see our churches with homosexual creatures. They're letting anybody in the door. This is something our preacher preaches about every week, every day. I know it's on his mind constantly. We got to be careful who we let through the door, because if we let the leaven through the door, the leaven will corrupt the whole thing. They can come through the door and they can seek God, and they should be, but to come in the door and take control and preach and try to lead the church is a whole nother thing. They're false. And you know the one thing, and it's going to get worse, and I'm saying this because it's in this section as we go on, is that all these churches are eventually going to come together. There's going to come a time, and we've talked about this, when the false prophet is going to go into the temple and say, "Praise me, I am God." And he's going to demand that you worship him, that he is going to be God, that he is all false. But all these religions that's out there now are slowly, they might be at each other's heels and nip and say, "Hey, you know, this is not going to," but they're all based on the same thing, the same theory. And they're all going to start coming together. And they'll be one. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this woman of fornication and where she's brought this. We're talking about this last 3.5 years. So as we go, we have to understand where we're at and where we're going. But it's all, you can look out the door, you can see it. If you can't see it, you got to be blind. You really got to be. I'm sorry, Bob. I'm not saying
you're okay.
I'm not saying that in a physical sense. I'm saying that in a spiritual sense. You got to be spiritually blind if you can't see it. You know, anybody can sit down and read Revelations, and they can read it again, and God wins, and still can't see it. And that amazes me. Verse 3. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman set upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Again, that's the false prophet. So here the Christian, oh man, I forget my words, I'm moving too fast.
Antichrist.
Well, the Antichrist is the government, and she's going to be the
False prophet.
well, he's the false prophet, right, or the Antichrist. But she's going to be he represents the government that he's going to be running. She's going to represent the religious section that they're going to follow, that the world is coming to. You understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
And she's going to ride up on his back. They're going to, whatever she does, they're going to control it. They're going to ride together. They're going to be as one. They're going to be united in their thoughts and in their ways. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colors, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full abominations and filthiness of her fornication. This is, their collars was the collar of royalty and nobility. She's going to be very, very rich. It's a false religious system that she's going to be presented to the world. And of course, this is what the Antichrist is going to, you're going to worship me. Saints are going to, this is, we're talking back in the tribulation. And so their damage is going to be great upon the earth as far as it comes to the saints. You know, saints are going to be jailed, executed. But you know, we think that's just started, but that ain't just started. In the dark ages, in the dark ages, there was some 50 million slain through worldly beliefs, through the beliefs of the dark ages. This is false prophecy. You look at today in these nations, in these countries, and we don't think about it. You look at China that's killing Christians, and you look at Russia that's killing Christians. And none of this is in the news. The stuff that I told you earlier, I don't know whether you heard it or not, but it's not on TV. It's not advertised. The news never announced this. There's several states that's being prosecuted due to their religious belief, through the churches of Christ, through the believers of Christ, to tear down the statues, through threats and everything. But we're not hearing this. And you never hear about Christians being prosecuted. You never hear it. At least I don't. And it comes to a surprise. And it should come to our surprise. I stood up here several months back and announced there was so many millions or so many hundreds of thousands of Christians being killed every year. We didn't know nothing about that. We know it's happening, but you don't hear about it. I read something, and maybe this is out of order, and I think about this, and I think about our America and Black Lives Matter. Did you know it seems to be, according to what I read, that only white Americans are prosecuting Black lives, not the Arab Americans, not the Islamic Americans, not the Jewish Americans, not the whatever America, Chinese American. It's just white Americans, and it's so amazing. It's just white Americans are the racial people of the world. He done something, and I said to think about this, and it irks me to think that in their eyes that no lives matter. We get prosecuted, we get killed, we get kicked, we get spit on just like everybody else. But the world has to have somebody, I think, from time to time to take their problems out on. And we know Satan's direction, and we are Christians, and we claim to be a Christian nation, but we sure not act like we are.
From a Christian perspective, remember there is no such thing as race. We're all related. So there's no real difference between someone whose ancestors came from Africa, and those who came from Northern Europe, and those who came from wherever. It doesn't matter, because we're all one people, we're all one group. And treating anybody differently because of how much melanin in their skin is stupid, regardless of how you do it. And
in the sight of God, we're all equal. We're all the same in the sight of God.
right, and
We're
so
all, not just Americans or Russians or Chinese or Koreans we're all the same. We're all equal. It doesn't say that he's partial to white or he's partial to yellow or he's partial. It doesn't say that. We're all equal in his eyes.
And since we're all related, we're all part of the same family, hating somebody because of the color of their skin, regardless of what color that is a stupid thing to do.
It is.
We all can agree that mistreating of somebody because of the color of their skin is an evil, stupid thing to do. But we will vehemently disagree that only one group of people can be sinfully, ethnically prejudiced. because we don't really believe in race, there's just different ethnicities. And to be simply ethnically prejudiced is like that you can be that way regardless of how dark your skin is or how light your skin is. And the thing is, the thing that's going on today is all about tearing people apart and creating different schisms because it will foment a revolution. The forces that are behind all this are the forces of Marxism. And Marxism sees it as that revolution is an equal thing. So they're trying to cause a revolution so that they can replace what we have with some utopia. This perfect society they think will happen. It's never worked. It's not going to work. It's a bad deal, but the people who are pushing this may not even realize it. The fact of the matter is, we look at what the Revelation says, and I don't know if this is a prelude. It sure looks like it's a prelude what's going to be happening here in just a little bit of what the Revelation is talking about. We could be another 100 years away. I have no idea, but I will tell you.
I don't think it's a prelude. I think time is short. I don't see us going back to yesterday. We can only move forward. How we're going to move forward if this calms down with the split of our nation and with the split of the world, with the confusion that's going on with the virus and Chinese been with the countries in the Cold Wars, this between America now and Russia, or China's a Cold War. Russia is a Cold War because what's going on with the trying to steal technology and stuff. There's so much going on in the world. How do you stop it? It can only escalate. God can stop it. But do you see it stopping? Or do you see escalation in what's going on? And I'm sure you know what's going on.
I see eventually that it's going to continue on and it's going to get worse. And I foresee the nation eventually falling. And it's going to be awful.
And that's what I'm afraid I see the same thing.
That's why what we're teaching on here in Sunday school is a lot like reading tomorrow's newspapers.
But this seems to worsen as we go along. There's so much disbelief. You know, with the Protestant religious, with the Roman Catholic, with the people that don't believe in Christ, the deception is just getting worse and worse each day. When you got people on the street saying it's my way and no other way, how do you calm that down? How do you stop that? How do you stop people like that? It used to be, well, we can sit down and talk. It's not that way anymore. It's my way. When you got government that believes only in money and power, and their belief is to take whatever they want. When did this start? When did this split start? Did it start last week? Did it start with the coronavirus? It started when a certain man was put in office.
To be honest with you, it started, the big split started in the 60s with all the stuff that was going on then. And then the radicals got into the schools and started filling the kids.
I believe that, but it had to come to this point before they started showing their true colors.
By the way, we've got 15 minutes to get through the rest of the chapter.
Oh, okay. Number 5. And the forehead was a name-written mystery, Babylon, the great, the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth. And I saw a woman drunken with the blood of saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great adornments. She's got a name written on her head as well. And you know where she's going to get casted. It wasn't put out. Number 7, and the angel said unto me, wherefore dost thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carried her, which hath 7 heads and 10 horns. Number 8, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundations of the world, when they beheld the beast that was and is not and is. Verse 9, and there is and there is the name which hath wondered, or wisdom, or there is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sat. I learned that the Roman Empire was built on 7 mountains.
7 heads.
7 heads. And they were built on 7 mountains. Each one was a colony of Rome. And of course, you know what they developed into Rome itself. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen and 1 is, and the other is not yet. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. The 7 kings, the 5 is fallen is Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Greece, of course. In that time that John wrote this, Rome was in control, in charge. And the one that popped up here was a little bit amazing to me that I read in this. I don't know who he is, but it says Nazi Germany. And you heard that.
Well, the Nazis never did achieve global domination.
I'm just saying it just sort of surprised me that was a name that popped up. Now they talk about. They also talk about Islamic. These nations that's going to come to the Antichrist is possibly 3 Islamic nations that's going to be back at him. So at that point we still don't know. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and he is of the 7th and goeth into perdition. So he's going to be the last and final thing that God is going to put down that comes against God. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings, 1 hour with the beast. The Antichrist is the human power. I've heard that it's the European Union. It's coming out of the European Union. I don't know that.
To be honest with you, the world is a very big place, and it would be very difficult to try to rule all that from one person. So the chances are what the Antichrist is going to do is set up like miniature governors or regional overseers, if you know what I'm saying. And so those are going to be your 10 kings, the 10 different global administration zones.
Right, and I understand it. I'm just going through it fast, but that's through the lecture. I've heard a couple of lectures this morning, and through the lectures, that's possibly where they're coming out of. So, you know. And the 10 horns which thou saw are 10 kings, as received no kingdom as yet. Okay, 13. And they have 1 mind, and shall give power and strength unto the beast. These kings, whatever they rule over, will have 1 mind. They'll give them the military might. They'll give them the money, all the money they have, everything that they got. They'll be all in accordance with one thing. And then that is to back Antichrist. I like 14, and I didn't go too deep into it. Victory for the land. These shall make war with the land, and the land shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So you know by that time we'll be in Jesus Christ, because they will make war with him. And it's amazing. They might be brought together on the battlefield for different reasons, but at the end, all will come together to fight Christ, which is probably
It's kind of funny what unifies people.
and it is. And you got to think about this. They think as strong as they are, and as much as they are, as powerful as they'll be on this earth, that they can defeat Christ.
What's funny to me is even today, the group that promotes like homosexual liberation and the group that talks about throwing homosexuals off roofs and stuff, the Islamics, they make their bedfellows. And I'm thinking, really? Well, you two groups I can't think of any 2 more opposite groups to get your.
Well, we talked about false religion, and one of the things that I read that the Roman Catholics, of course, you know, they got a lot of they're all over the world. are in a path with the Islam, the Islamic nations, and they're all seeing eye to eye, moving forward together. And we don't realize that they haven't come together, and it hasn't been stated. But the way things are going, they're not clashing against each other; they're moving forward with each other. So that's something's coming. 15, and he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are people and multitudes and nations and tongues. We talked about that earlier. 16, and the 10 horns which thou saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. This is the thing that's hard for me to get a comprehension on, because they come to the point that they hate it. They hate the false religion, and they make war against the false religion, and then destroy this. Why did they do this, I wonder? I never got it in my mind why. They turned around.
Antichrist was to be all power. He had, this whore is taking his power away, is taking, and he does it, and the Antichrist is against religion, so yeah, he's going to have her destroyed because she's taking up his Bible.
I didn't think about that. I didn't have it come in mind that that he had invited her in, and they were moving forward. I mean, it was the money and the power that she had that he was looking for, but then he turns against her.
He'll use the false prophet, the false religion of Babylon to secure his power, and the second it's secured, he doesn't have any need of it anymore.
And then once that is taken away, then the religion of the day will be for them to worship him, not whatever this
Right.
religion is.
It never did click in my mind there. Things will click, but that didn't click.
And you'll see that a lot. Like, for instance, there is, in the new liberal religion of social justice warrioring, there's no other religion that is, everything else has to be subordinate to that. There can't be any dissent or any other voice. And Antichrist is not going to want to share his limelight with anybody.
So he turns on her, the religion.
Once he doesn't need her anymore, he throws her aside.
Yeah, I can see that. 17, for God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdoms unto blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb, and his supper unto the handmaid. These are the true sayings of God. And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of my brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. All this is telling us in the end what's going to happen, who's going to win. But yet, God's going to close their eyes and their hearts to the truth. It just dawns on me.